Good
Welcome,
morning.
everyone. Thank you for joining us today in our discussion about the Supreme Court's decision on Daca. I am very happy, and happy is an understatement, that the Supreme Court ruled the way they did. And I'm glad that many of our DACA-mentor students can rest a little easier now. With that, it is important that we acknowledge that we must continue advocating for immigration reform on a larger scale, as DACA is still a temporary solution. Some of you are here today who are already DACA recipients, and some of you are here who would like to know if you are eligible to apply to DACA for the first time. We also have allies here who want to know how to support students during this time. So I just want to thank everyone for being here. I would like to open up today by sharing very briefly about what the Quest Center is for those of you who don't know, and a little bit about the services and resources that we have available. The Quest Center is new. It's been open for a little less than a year, and the acronym stands for Queer and Undocumented Empowerment Support to Thrive. And we serve as a resource center for LGBTQ questioning students, undocumented students, documented students, students with mixed status families, formerly undocumented, and allies. Two of the main services that are currently being provided to undocumented students at the moment are free immigration legal services in collaboration with Carecen, who we have here today. And appointments are hosted virtually and can be booked at the link. Alex, you can go to the next visual. So this is the link, and David will talk about the immigration legal services a little more. But in addition to that, Quest has partnered with Personal Counseling at PCC to bring the Butterfly Healing Series for the summer. And the Butterfly Healing Series is a safe space and peer support group for undocumented students who want to share experiences and build community. Meetings are Fridays from 11 a.m. to noon. And so I highly encourage our undocumented students to partake in those particular resources that are available. Other resources provided are transfer navigation, connecting our students to the resource centers at the four-year universities, AB 540 assistance, name change services for our students who identify as trans or fear for their safety, LGBTQ and or undocumented specific scholarship assistance, navigating access to healthcare, and more. The center is a holistic space where we acknowledge that a student has needs well beyond the classroom. And so that is important and influential in how students perform academically. So with that, please know that this is only some of our resources and services, and should you need support in other areas, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Our email is quest@pasadena.edu. You can also become a Quest member and stay connected to all our upcoming events through the link right there where it says become a Quest member, and we are here to support you. Before we jump into the presentation, we do have a few statements from our administrators and faculty. First, I would like to introduce our Pasadena City College president, Dr. Erica Androjanis, who would like to share a few words with us all. Dr.
And as you see, I got it.
Awesome.
It is absolutely my pleasure to be here today. Last week was an amazing week. As an out lesbian president, the first ruling of the week was fabulous because it means that people like me are protected. And hopefully we can make some headway in terms of safety for our trans population, because right now, even with this ruling, it's still a really tough place for them. And then on Thursday, another just amazing ruling came, and you can talk to pretty much anybody in my executive team and anybody I've talked to in the last month to 2 months. I've been very concerned about the DACA decision. I listened in on I read transcripts of the oral arguments of the Supreme Court. And, you kind of, it's so interesting because as a historian, American history is my background, and, you listen really carefully and you try to think, well, is that question from that justice coming from a point of, I've already made up my mind and I'm just trying to get an argument out there just for show? Or am I really inquiring what this is about? And, you know, to show my history perspective here, I'm trying not to get too giddy about John Roberts possibly being the modern Earl Warren, because when Earl Warren was appointed to the Supreme Court, the belief was that he was going to continue a very conservative perspective, or at least a hope, and instead he did exactly the opposite. And it was very telling when he did it, because it was right as we were going into the modern civil rights movement. And so these two rulings in a single week are significant, because what they're saying is that it is possible for even justices who are appointed by and thought to be people who adhere to conservative ideologies, that in the end, and for the most part, they're going to focus on what the law actually says. And they're going to, in this case, hearken back to Chief Justice Brandeis, who talked about that you couldn't just have a law, you also had to look at how it impacted, what was the intent of the law, and more importantly, how is it actually going to impact people. And the reason I bring up Brandeis is because I think he would agree that this ruling for Daca was the right decision, because all of the language out there, it wasn't about the rule of law. It was about how can we harm people? How can we, in the absence of any sort of congressional or legislative fix for immigration, people talk a lot about it, but they don't actually want to do anything about it. Or if they want to, they throw up their hands and say it's too hard. Well, yeah, it's hard and it needs to happen. But in the meantime, I can't even tell you how happy I am the way the Daca decision came down. It was key. It's so important to our students. It's so important to our community. It's important in so many ways. And there isn't much more to say than I'm so happy we have the Quest Center. We are here to support students. We're here to support the community. And it's just great to be on the right side of history.
Thank you, Dr. Andrejanis. Thank you. Now we have our Vice President of Student Services, Dr. Cynthia Olivo, who would also like to share a few words with us all.
Thank you, Desiree. I also want to echo the Superintendent President of our college and just say how elated I am that the Supreme Court ruled to protect Daca. I'm somebody who's been working on protection for undocumented students since I myself was an undergraduate at Cal State University, San Bernardino in the mid-90s. And it's great to see that our federal level legislation is being very supportive. I also want to say thank you to the Safe Zone Coalition at PCC. There was a time in our college where it was not a safe place to even discuss immigration at all, I would say over a decade ago. But through time, we've built services, and now we even have a program, a center that helps our students. So I'm just overjoyed. Thank you so much to our attorney, David Lawler, for helping our students, and to Dr. Micaela Mares Tamayo for applying for that grant so that we could be a part of the colleges that offer immigration service to students. And finally, thank you to Desiree Hernandez for getting our center off the ground and offering the essential critical support that our students need. And I'm here to also advocate for you and be a support to you in student services. Thank you very much, and I look forward to our program today.
Thank you, Dr. Olivo. I would now like to introduce Brian Pangan, who will be sharing a statement on behalf of the Safe Zones Coalition. Brian is a Safe Zones Coalition member, advisor for our undocumented student club here at PCC, United Without Boundaries, and also the chair, coordinator, and counselor for our non-credit at the Foothill campus. And as I mentioned, although the center is new, many years of work and advocacy were put into making the Quest Center a reality. And much of that work was dedicated by the Safe Zones Coalition, Safe Learning Environment, Ad Hoc Committee, and many other staff and faculty at our college. With that, Brian Pangan, please take it away.
Thank you, Desiree, and welcome everybody. Thank you to the Quest Center for inviting us here today. We are proud to be partners with you in the continued fight to bring social justice to our campus. The Safe Zones Coalition's founding mission is to advocate for our LGBTQ+ and DREAM students at Pasadena City College. We believe through the support of DREAM students and LGBTQ students, direct action and creation of campus allies that we can create more equitable programs around campus. As the entire PCC community and nation witnessed last week, 3 historical decisions from the Supreme Court dramatically changed the landscape for our LGBTQ+ and DREAM students. We are thrilled and heartened by these decisions, knowing that these moves the moral arc of the universe one step closer to justice. These decisions will directly impact the daily lives of our students, and we are happy for that. Their burden has been lightened. We stand in solidarity with our undocumented and LGBTQ+ students as we celebrate these victories. Beginning with the Supreme Court's decision to turn down the administration's challenge to California's Sanctuary Cities law, we support all of our immigrant communities' right to work, attend college, and to live healthy, productive lives without the fear of deportation by federal agents. The collusion of our local law enforcement agencies with the federal government created a climate of fear. Upholding this law will allow all our communities to feel safe, to interact with the law enforcement, and improve safety for all. Secondly, we applaud the decision protecting LGBTQ+ student individuals against unlawful discrimination in the workplace. This is the first step in the right direction, removing harmful practices that seek to dehumanize folks simply based on who they love. The Safe Zones Coalition stands in righteous solidarity with our queer community. We see you, we support you, we are you. You are loved. Finally, the Safe Zones Coalition stands in solidarity with our dreamers. Nearly 800,000 students will benefit from the Supreme Court's decision or refusal to hear this administration's argument against deferred action for childhood arrivals, Daca. It is a victory for our families, students, and community. This ruling affirms home is here and is the final step in recognizing our dreamers. As allies, we sit with our students as they share painful stories of having loved ones ripped from their arms and deported, or listen as they struggle with the dream of college degree and the desperate need to work to support their family. We are better than this. This ruling is the first tenuous steps towards acknowledging our dreamers are here to stay. Make no mistake, there is still work to be done. Our dream with Safe Zones is to put ourselves out of business. We work to create a community where our LGBTQ+ and dreamers will not need us, because all of PCC will be a place of justice. We are proud to be affiliated with the Quest Center and stand in awe of the work that you do. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for that. Now, lastly, we will be having personal counseling to share some resources that are provided to our students. Dr. Kimberly Rios-Lam.
Yes, hi everyone. I know that my colleague, Dr. Briano, also wanted to share something very briefly, but I just want to say I'm really happy to, of course, just have heard so much good news with Daca right now, and it isn't the end, of course, but I know that as personal counseling, we really are looking forward to working together with Quest Center to provide even more resources. And for myself, I know that there's some flyers that have been sent out. We're going to be having some undocu chats each week that I'll be holding. And the purpose of this is to create really an inclusive and welcoming space for these incoming students, as well as the spring graduates and current students, to be able to have a safe, in a welcoming community to share these experiences and resources. So I'm really looking forward to starting that this week on Friday. And I really just want to remind everyone that if there are any needs that you may know of that your students are seeking, you can please, reach out to us and we can provide some of those resources, some of that support. So I am the liaison currently for Quest and Personal Counseling. And I will leave Dr. Marcos Briano to talk a little bit more about more specifics of our resources.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And I just want to say how excited we are to be here, part of another arm of support for our students. I think one of the things we think about is to put the idea of words into action. And I think my colleague, Dr. Kim Rios-Lamb, is working with Desiree and the group to get to that next level where we have the words and we move into the action piece, which is so super important. The last thing we want to just get across is we talk about intersectionality. We have many different layers of all of us. I'll speak for myself, being gay, being Mexican American, and being first generation, how we kind of can go against all these odds and then persevere. We think of resiliency. And that's part of what personal counseling is. And we want to make sure students know that they can always outreach to us. They can give us a call. We have our triage hours during the summer. They can call in. If we can't get them, if we're not able to connect, we'll get them connected to the resources we have. So whether it's just to check in with us or to get resources, we are here. And I think this next arm that we have with Dr. Kim Rios-Lamb is going to be an excellent component. And just to let you know that we are here for you. We see you. We support you. We know you have value, you have impact, and you're important.
Thank you, Marcos and Kimberly. We will now be jumping into the DACA decision presentation, which will be facilitated by David Lawler from Carecen. David provides students with the free immigration legal services, and he'll talk about that a little further. After the presentation, we will have time for questions and answers. So without further ado, David, you have the floor.
Desiree, thank you. And I appreciate everything that Desiree and the Quest Center support staff do to help caress and help the undocumented people at PC, students, staff, and faculty at PCC. And I can't help but admiring and appreciating the support that the leadership of PCC has demonstrated today for social justices, and then just social justice, and then hearing a little bit about some of the other support services that are available. So what I'd like to do today is do a couple things. First, introduce Carecen and myself, and then spend a couple minutes talking about breaking down the Supreme Court decision, and then talk about some of the opportunities that have been created now, we don't know for how long, and we'll talk about that, for applying for DACA for the first time, for continuing to renew DACA, which has been, we've been able to do since Trump terminated it back in 2017, talk a little bit about advanced parole, and then how to go about getting legal help. So first off, my name, Carecen has been around since the early to mid 80s. And it grew out of an effort by Salvadorian refugees who sued the federal government and ultimately won. And today we're an organization of about 80 people, about 60 or so providing legal services to immigrants. Carecen is focused exclusively on providing services for the immigrants in the Los Angeles area. About a year and a half ago, the state of California funded a program to provide free legal services to the CSU campuses. And we have 8 or 9 attorneys and legal assistants at the CSU campuses. And this year, the state was so pleased with that program, the state has funded a similar program at community colleges, of which PCC is one. My name is Dave Lawler. I graduated from law school back in May of 2019 and passed the bar in July, and I'm awaiting my formal admission as an attorney, as they don't process applications during this COVID period of time, apparently. So, let's start off and talk about what the Supreme Court actually did. And the Supreme Court terminated the Trump administration's effort to terminate DACA. And they did it based on what is in essence a technicality. They didn't opine on whether DACA, the program itself, was legal or illegal. The Supreme Court limited their decision to saying, Trump, you cannot terminate this program in the manner in which you did. And the Supreme Court based the decision, effectively, Trump didn't follow the rules. Whenever a president acts or an agency acts, there are certain rules that are laid out for them in something called the Administrative Procedure Act. It's the rules of the road for a government agency. And DHS, Department of Homeland Security, did not follow those rules when DACA was terminated. And what the Supreme Court did was they effectively laid out a path for DHS to terminate the program in a proper way. All that said, it's a huge victory for DACA recipients and other undocumented people at this time. So what are the limits of the decision? The court didn't say that the government could not terminate DACA. And as I said, effectively, they gave a roadmap to the Trump administration to do it in the future. But right now we're in a void because this decision took us back to 2012 when DACA was first created by President Obama. And when DACA was first created, people could apply for DACA. People could, once they had DACA, apply for advanced parole. And they could renew their DACA and employment authorization every 2 years. So there's, right now, Crescent is accepting applications for people filing for DACA for the first time. But there's a highly personalized discussion of risks that need to go on. And that's one of the things I should point out is that today is general information. It's not legal advice specific to your situation. If you're interested in hearing more about, do I qualify to apply for DACA for the first time? Should I renew my existing DACA now? Or is advanced parole something that I would qualify for, makes sense for me? The QR codes that are in the lower left-hand corner of all of the slides, if you hold your camera up to that, that will take you to the online booking site to sign up for a free and private consultation. So what are the risks if you're considering applying for DACA for the first time? In general, the biggest risk is the one that happens to be at the bottom, is the Trump administration may attempt to rescind DACA again. They've said as much that they plan on doing it, but whether they do, they say a lot of things and never do anything. So that's probably the biggest risk. And the risk to that is if you were to file a new application today, you run the risk that if DACA is terminated before your application is processed, the government can decline to process it, they could reject it, they could deny it, and you could lose your money. Concurrent to that, USCIS has not issued guidance as to how new DACA applications will be processed. We have the old rules, and those are the ones that we're using to submit DACA applications now. But in the absence of guidance, no one knows for sure whether the old way is the right way. However, if you wait for guidance, you run the risk that Trump terminates the program before you've even submitted your application. And so it's a competing timeline that has to have an individualized discussion so you understand that competing guideline. And then the other risk is that whenever you file an application, whether it's DACA for the first time or I-130, husband petitioning wife, any sort of affirmative application to USCIS when you're undocumented, you're turning over your personal information to the government. And so the point of all that is not to scare people. the point is that in order to make a good decision for you, you need to have someone explain these risks to you and what the potential benefits of filing a new DACA application are. Now, who's eligible to file a DACA application for the first time? There's certain categories that you have to be of certain ages, you have to have presence, and you need to have a certain educational background. With age, you have to have come to the United States before your 16th birthday. And you had to be under 31 as of June 15th, 2012. You had to have been present in the United States on June 15th of 2012 without any lawful status. And you have to continually reside in the United States since June 15th of 2007. And in some of the subsequent slides, I'm going to talk a little bit about what proof someone needs to provide the government or to provide in a consultation in order for us to be able to evaluate whether they qualify and ultimately submit to the government. Because with DACA and many others, you need to prove all of these to the government. You just can't say, well, I've been here since June 15th of 2012 and I was under 31. You need to be able to, with your birth certificate, show when you were born, and you need to be able to show the presence, and we'll cover that. You also need to, there's 4 ways to satisfy the educational requirement: that you're currently in school, that you've graduated or obtained a certificate of completion, or you've obtained a GED, or you're an honorably discharged member of the armed forces. And we process applications where people sign up for school right before the application is submitted. So if you're someone who doesn't have the educational requirement, have a consultation and see if there's a way to satisfy that. And then the last thing is you cannot have been convicted of a felony or of a significant misdemeanor, and or three misdemeanors, or pose a threat to national security. So those are the general eligibility for DACA. If you're applying it for the first time, you need to prove your, as I said, your age and your identity. And on here, I won't read them, but there's a list of evidence that can be submitted with your application to prove that. And I'll also point out that our appointments across the board have filled up very quickly. And so if you're interested in finding out applying for DACA and there's not an appointment for a week or 2 weeks, still sign up for it and use this period of time before your appointment to begin gathering the evidence that you would need to submit. These are pretty self-explanatory, but when you get into an educational requirement, do you still have your high school diploma? If not, you're going to have to go to your high school and obtain proof that you graduated or a copy of your diploma. The presence requirement is generally the one that causes people the most difficulty in proving, because there's 2 of them. You have to prove you've been here since June 15th of 2007, and that you were physically present on a certain date, June 15th of 2012. And so we find that you know your life best. We can put up a list of all the different documents that we've seen, but think back on your life. And did you go to a summer camp in 2012? And would you be able to contact that summer camp to get proof of that? Utility bills, bank statements, school records. Did you go to summer school at that period of time? Did you go to the doctor sometime right around that period of time and were on treatment? So all of those, think about your life when you're thinking about these presence factors, the presence requirements, and think about what you can come up with to prove. And I'll point out, if you're going to start looking at school records, it's better sooner rather than later to begin, because number one, not all the schools are set up to provide this information quickly. And I suspect that there's going to be a large demand on schools to provide this information as people take advantage of being able to apply for DACA for the first time. A common question is, what if I have a criminal record? Generally, conviction of a felony or a significant misdemeanor precludes you from being included in the DACA program. And I say generally because there are ways to possibly get the criminal record expunged depending on what it was. So this needs to be a consultation with either Caresson or some other legal provider where you can bring forth your criminal records and let an attorney evaluate it to see if you would qualify for the program. Traffic tickets don't matter unless they're related to drugs or alcohol. And always get advice before you submit an application when you have a criminal record. So as I said, applying for DACA for the first time, gather your documentation to get ready. Make an appointment with Caresson or another service provider. Request transcripts from schools and start gathering the documents that show you've been present since June 15th of 2007. You want to get an identity document if you don't already have one, and order any court documents you may need. I mean, the courts are generally closed, but they are processing requests for court dispositions. It just takes time. It can take 3 weeks as opposed to just being able to walk into a court and get that. So this decision has opened up the opportunity for people to apply for DACA for the first time. And we just talked about what some of the requirements of that are. You're also able to continue, if you already have DACA and your employment authorization, you're able to continue to renew your DACA. And generally, it's been within 150 days of your employment authorization expiring that you would be able to file your renewal. Caresson has been of the opinion, because of all the uncertainty, anybody's work authorization that expires in the next year should renew now. And if anyone's in that situation, I can go through the math for you to make a decision of whether that makes sense for you. The other, because we've gone back now to 2012, when you could apply for DACA for the first time, you could renew. And you can also, DACA recipients can apply for advanced parole. And advanced parole is applying for permission to travel abroad and be able to return to the United States lawfully under this advanced parole. There are some requirements. You have to show that your travel is related to a humanitarian reason, an educational reason, maybe study abroad, or some sort of employment or professional opportunities. Humanitarian reasons can be if you're going to see an elderly relative that you haven't seen in years. It can be someone who is ill that you're going to see. So there's a wide variety, and again, it needs to be documented. What are the risks for applying for advanced parole when you're a DACA recipient? And some of them are the same as applying for DACA for the first time. Some are a little different. Probably the biggest risk when you apply for advanced parole as a DACA recipient is that advanced parole is discretionary, meaning it's up to, I don't want to say the whims, but almost the whims of USCIS, as opposed to other forms of relief of applications where it's, if you meet this criteria, if you meet A, B, and C, you're granted the relief. With advanced parole, you can meet all the requirements. You can show you're going on a temporary trip for humanitarian reasons, and USCIS can still deny it. And if they deny it, they keep your money. Another risk right now with the COVID-19 pandemic is traveling abroad has its own set of risks, both from a health standpoint, but also from the standpoint that sometimes the advanced parole is for a very specific period of time. You have to leave by this date and return by some certain date in the future. Well, if you go to a country that the COVID-19 becomes so severe that that country decides to close their airports and close their borders, you may get stuck there and not be able to return in time that your advanced parole requires. Another risk is that DACA could be terminated again by the Trump administration. Because again, remember, it was a big win, but it's not certain how Trump is going and the administration is going to react to it. So they can try to terminate again. And in 2017, when DACA was terminated, all of the pending advanced parole applications were sent back to people with their filing fees. So USCIS just declined to process them. If you're approved in 2017 with advanced parole, you are still able to travel. But there's no guarantee that that would be the same this time. Under advanced parole, you cannot travel until you've been both approved and the travel document has been issued. And we don't, again, similar to DACA, where we don't know what the USCIS guidance is on how they're going to be processing DACA applications. We don't know yet how USCIS is going to process advanced parole applications. And reentry into the United States, even if you've done everything right and you've come back within your date, reentry is discretionary. All reentry for non-citizens into the United States is discretionary, but that's something that needs to be kept in mind. So with advanced parole, you want to make sure, with everything, but you want to make sure you're getting good legal advice. And good legal advice in advanced parole is an analysis of the risks at application when you're considering submitting the application, taking into account many of the things we've discussed above. And then it's also getting another risk assessment at that point in time when you're getting ready to travel, when you have your travel documents in hand. So advanced parole opens up many opportunities, and we are being Crescent, are processing advanced parole applications. In order to apply for advanced parole, you need to schedule an appointment with Crescent, and then here's a list of documents that you would need. And with this one, we would suggest getting the 2 passport-sized photos for this, as well as new DACA applications, even though that's been waived. And the next steps, take advantage of the free and confidential consultation services that are available with Crescent through the Quest Center. Spread the word in your community. Educate your community that right now DACA is back and people can apply for the first time, can continue to renew, and can consider applying for advanced parole. And as I believe someone else mentioned earlier, keep fighting and advocating for the legislative change. You know, DACA, the House of United States House of Representatives has passed a bill that gives DACA recipients a path to permanent legal status, but the Senate has not taken it up. And that's in the face of, you know, depending on the poll you read, 80% of the 75% of the United States voters support protecting Dreamers through a program like DACA, including like 65% of Republicans. So there's tremendous support in the country for treating Dreamers the way they should be treated as part of this country, because they are part of this country. And so keep up talking, keep up fighting for the rights. And with that, I will take questions. I've also put up my email address in case someone would be more comfortable emailing a question. Now, I'll point out, if it's a question very specific to your situation, my response may be to sign up for a consultation, because oftentimes it's hard to answer specific questions without a great deal more facts. And you may even hear me do that during the question and answer period here. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you, David. I just wanted everyone to know that the chat feature is disabled on this Zoom. So if you do have a question, you would need to verbally ask it out loud.
May I?
Go ahead.
So you mentioned reentry is discretionary. So then what is the application and or the approval of the advanced parole give you per se? Because it gives you an approval to leave, but it doesn't guarantee that you can come back.
That is correct. Because there's no visa that will guarantee you that you're able to come back when you're a non-citizen. What it does give you, it gives you the ability to leave the country and make application to come back without, among several things, kicking in any sort of bars. Because the people in certain immigration statuses, if you leave the country, you can be barred from reentry as a matter of law. So it gets rid of some of the problems that people have leaving the country when they're non-citizens. Even a passport entry is discretionary.
At whose discretion?
The Border Patrol.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. What happens if, when you try to re-entry the U.S., they don't accept your entry? What would be the process and what would one do? Would they send you back to the place where you came from, or would they detain you in a detention center, or what would be their process?
Generally speaking, okay, because their process would be to deny you entry. What recourse you have depends upon your status and your personal immigration situation. The chances of being, the idea of being detained, I want to get a little information before I answer that question for you. And I will, if you email me, or I'll send Desiree an email, whatever your preference is.
Uh-huh. I can email you.
Okay.
David, I have a question for the presence before 16th birthday requirement.
Mm-hmm.
For someone who had a tourist visa and was just coming in and out, as a child going in and out, would that qualify as presence before 16th birthday?
That's a good question. I have to look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Is it continuous presence before 16th birthday, or just the fact that you've been here?
That's the question.
Mm-hmm. Because there has to be continuous presence from 2007 to 2012. It
Right.
states that. But as far as the presence before the 16th birthday, it doesn't specify, continuous.
Right, but I don't want to just make that assumption.
Yeah.
I mean, the common sense and logic says yes by the plain reading of it, but I'd rather make sure.
Yeah, thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Hi, I have a question.
Sure.
I'm a new applicant for Daca, but I have TPS.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, would I still be able to apply for Daca?
That's a good question too. I need to find that out. And I'm sorry I don't have answers for all these questions.
It's okay. So I can just email you?
Yes, please do.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I'm a Daca recipient for the proof of the came after the 16th anniversary. So what will be your best advice in this case? Probably it's more complex, so probably I have to email you better. there's the main thing that I need to advise.
Yeah, I would prefer you make an appointment and we talk about it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I have one question as well.
Sure.
What was the name of that law that hasn't been approved yet, but is in the works in terms of getting DACA recipients a path to citizenship?
Oh. I'll have to, if you send me an email, I'll get you the name. If you Googled it, it would come up. But if you want me to, if you send me send me an email question, I'll get you the answer.
Okay, and I can Google it too. Sorry if that was an
No,
easy
no, that's
question.
okay.
Thank you.
I'm not trying to be flippant, but I just off the top of my head, because they name those bills ridiculous names.
Yeah. All right. Well,
So,
thank you so much, Dave.
If you can't find it, just email me and I'll get it for you.
I believe it was the California Dream Act. I'm sorry, the Dream Act. Sorry, not the California Dream Act.
Yeah, the Dream Act. That sounds right.
Yes.
Thank you, Desiree.
You're welcome. Do we have any more questions?
Oh, yes. Will the PowerPoint be provided like through our emails? Will you be sending out the PowerPoints?
So it is being recorded. It will be captioned and then it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. If you are a Quest member, you will be receiving the link for that. So I highly encourage you to become a member, and I shared the link prior, and unfortunately can't provide it now because I can't type in the chat box, but you can go to our website on Pasadena City College. And
okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Is it possible to also, in that email, attach just the PowerPoint?
Desiree, do you? I mean, I certainly can.
Okay, David. Yeah, if you can send it to me, and then I'll send it to our students as well.
Okay, I may turn it into a PDF.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
David, I actually have, we let our students know that they could ask us questions through email prior to this meeting. And so I do have a question from someone, and it's not DACA related, but maybe you can answer. A student said that their brother has a U visa and went to Mexico to seek medical treatment, but because the border was closed, is unable to return. Can someone come back with a U visa?
I want to double check the answer to that.
Okay.
So I'll just send that to you, Desiree?
Yeah, you can definitely send me the answers to those questions, and I'll send it out to all our members.
Sounds good.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Professor Aragon, but I want to make sure the students have their questions in first because I know we're running close to time. So I do have a couple of questions, but I'll hold off for a couple minutes.
Sure. Can I?
Question before Professor Aragon?
Please do. That's exactly my point.
If I may again.
Go ahead.
Dave,
of course.
Dave, you said that you recommended applying 150 days prior. That's about 5 months. If it's a shorter timeline than that, what I guess what happens, or what's the risk?
Well, if you're within the 150 days, if you're within the 150 days of your work permit expiring, the risk is that if the program were terminated again, that they wouldn't process that application. But if you go back and use 2017 as an example, that's highly unlikely. because they gave a 1 month grace period for people whose work permits were expiring in the future. I think it was 6 months at the time to be able to apply. So you're highly likely to have it if you're within the 150 days to have it processed, even if DACA is terminated. If you're outside the 150 days, there's a couple of risks. One is that USCIS declines to, let's just say DACA isn't continue, nothing's happened to the program. USCIS can deny to process the application and keep your fee and force you to refile within 150 days and pay again. We've not seen that happen, but USCIS it's possible.
Just to be clear, when you say within, like if you're already counting down past the 150-day mark from the day that your DACA expires, then you should be okay. But if it's outside, like if it's past those couple months,
yeah, so
then
sorry.
Then there's a chance they might ask you to reapply and keep your fees.
Right. So, for instance, there was a person who renewed their DACA and it came due in July of 2021. They were obviously outside the 150 days.
Right.
And so they were processed slowly, but they were processed. That's no guarantee. You know, I don't want to make guarantees. You know, in that case, they processed it.
Another lingering question I've had for some time is what happens, let's say you apply a little earlier than the time that it expires and you're approved. Does the new one start as of when your application was approved or as of when your other one ended?
It's a great question. It's when it was approved. So you by applying early, and I'm going to use the July 2021 example.
Okay.
Apply, let's say it was today, they go from June 2020 to June 2022. Right, 2 years. So the person in July 21 is picking up, let's call it a year, 11 months. As opposed to if they waited to July 2021, they could get 2 more years to 23. So they're paying sooner, but they're picking up a year. And the idea was not knowing what's going to happen with DACA, why not try to capture that extra year now?
I see. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I always get nervous with math explanations. Yes.
Sorry. When you apply for advanced parole, how does the time you stay depend? Like, does it depend if you're going on a school related trip, like studying abroad, or if you're seeing a family member for humanitarian reasons? Is there a certain amount of days they give you for advanced parole?
There's nothing set in stone, but in general, going to study abroad is going to be for a longer period of time than going to see a sick relative. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it sort of depends on the circumstances.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to go ahead and pose my question, if that's okay with everyone. Again, this is Professor Aragon. And let me get focused here because, last week was extremely emotional for myself. And a lot of it is working with so many years with the students, so as a gay Chicano, and then writing the statement, when we were writing our statement, a lot of stuff was coming up. So I want to thank my editor, Carrie Alfuso, who's a Safe Zone member, for helping me, edit the piece that I wrote. And Brian, you did a beautiful job. But it was a lot going on. So I'm speaking on behalf of my students that are really, and you mentioned a limbo state, right? The students that I work with, and especially the LGBTQ undocumented students and the undocumented students, kind of go underground in these situations. So I'm still concerned about their level of well-being, and this may be a question for the whole group. And let me just get to the point of, how are we working with those students that right now, because they're feeling that there's so much stuff that's still in limbo, that they don't even want to bother with it. So I would ask you first, sir, about what would you say to those students that don't want to go any further and rather just hold off? Should we just encourage them to go through and apply for whatever they can apply? So I want to hear your point first, and then maybe also Desiree, and how we're working with those students, who are going through, the psychological, emotional stuff. Does that make sense, my question?
It makes perfect sense, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not going to say I can put myself in anybody making that decision place, right? I mean, but what I can say from Caressen's point of view is that we try to focus on what we can control in times of uncertainty. And what you can control is getting an appointment to get yourself educated. There's no commitment. I'll spend an hour and a half, maybe over a couple of appointments, but I'll spend as much time as someone wants to talk about what are my options. And I think that in times of uncertainty, getting knowledge can help you overcome fear. And that's it's why I went to law school, is to be able to try to bring that knowledge to people, to take away that fear. That address the question, Professor?
Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, I think so. And then maybe from Desiree, as far as what is going to be going on in the future for our students, given the center and all our efforts, because I'm going to be on sabbatical soon, but I'm going to keep my ear on this because I am part of the coalition. But as far as are the students now going to be at other workshops and dealing with that, Desiree? Have you thought about that? I mean, I'm more than happy to help if I can.
Yes, and I hope, Professor Aragon, have you been receiving our events that we've been having? I hope so. Like our code.
I've been inundated with emails, but I'll go check through them. So if you can send them again, that'd be great.
Yes. And so right now what we're doing for the summer, one of the big things we're doing for undocumented students is the Butterfly Healing Series. And this is a partnership with our personal counseling department. Dr. Kimberly Rios Lam is facilitating along with one of our staff, Janet Rubalcaba, peer support groups, a space where students can build community, talk about their experiences, vent, talk about their fears, and so I think it's really important to validate those experiences.
Correct.
Along with that, when COVID-19 started, we knew how important it was to let students know how to access healthcare during this time. Was it a public charge? Was ICE going to be near hospitals? And we let our students know that. So, we try to do our best in really trying to see multiple areas that our students make. And I'm sorry, my screen here is messing up, but multiple ways and facets of our students' lives that they need, support in. And so right now we're definitely doing mental health, we're connecting our students to the Dream Resource Centers at the 4 universities so that they can, still have that support, once they go off. And so it's really like empowering our students. That's the ultimate, and making sure that we are establishing that rapport and those relationships with our students so that they do feel supported and confianza, trust that they can let us know what is it that they need.
Right, I appreciate that, Desiree. And just to let you know, I am going to be going on my research is going to be focused on the retention, success and retention of our LGBTQ, specifically our men of color. And so I want to be, at service of the center at any time that you need me in the future, but I'll be spending a year doing that research. So I'm more than willing to help, presently and in the future with the center.
Thank you so much, Professor Aragon. I appreciate it, and I look forward to that.
Thank you so much. It's only for a small stipend. Our vice president's here. No, I'm more than happy, and I look forward to that. So thank you for your input, and thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Aragon.
Can I ask one more?
Yeah, go ahead, Hiran.
Sorry to bug you guys.
You're not bugging. You're not bugging.
So recently I found out, I know that generally undocumented and LGBTQ community have faced a lot of hardships and kind of preconceived notions which aren't necessarily true, which make life harder. But I have a friend who recently came out to his parents and or his mom, and she didn't accept that. And as a result, life at home started becoming really difficult to a point that he decided to leave. Fortunately, a friend who was going on a road trip kind of said, "Hey, why don't you come along with us?" He is a PCC student. He just got accepted to UC Santa Cruz, and they're making an exception for him for the fall so that he can move up there and live on campus. Is it possible for you guys, for him to connect to you, even though he's been accepted for transfer to the fall? Can he connect to you guys so that you can be that bridge between Santa Cruz and PCC?
Yes, of course. And we are here for our students well beyond transfer. You know, we really want to build that community with our alums and students who are going off. And so, yes, please let them know that they can connect with us and we will support them in any way we can.
Okay, thank you so much. And it's nice to know that that's something special I really found at PCC. It's not about the time you're here, it's also about life and transitioning you so that you're ready for life.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Sorry.
Do we have maybe one or two last questions from anyone before we close off?
I have a question.
Hi, Nadia.
In the past, I've helped. Hola. In the past, we've helped several students with their application because there are minors. A lot of them don't have their name per se on a lot of this documentation that's required or part of the proof. I've had a few that use several images of, like you said, camps or gatherings with dates, locations, and would in the past, and we've created PDFs for them. Would that still be considered proof,
If
or
that's
would you
all,
recommend?
if that's all there is, then I'd say let's have a consultation and look through it, because maybe some other idea that in of itself, if that's all there is, that's all there is, and we make the argument around that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, my husband actually didn't have proof in 2007, and we were looking through stuff, and a parking ticket is what we submitted, and it got through. So yeah. Any last question?
I have a question. It's not like necessarily DACA related, but it is like a travel question. So my sister, she is a high school student, but her high school for senior year, they travel to Hawaii for a whole week. My sister doesn't have DACA, and she's wondering if she travels like with the school, is there any risk that, you know, she could get like, you know, detained or anything like that, because she is going to be like 18 when she travels with the school. So that's something, or I think 19, she's going to be 19. But that's something that she's like, that we're wondering, or like my parents are not sure whether to let her go or to not, because they don't know how big of a risk it is. But she is traveling with like a school.
Desiree, can I just take a real quick stab at that as far as if that PCC student? I'll let Dave go first.
Well, no,
I just want to share about Puente and when we traveled. So when you come to the college, it's never been an issue. Come to the college, it's never been an issue, and then I'll let Dave. So just feel safe and we take care of this at PCC.
And probably when the biggest risk of flying is getting through TSA. And the documentation that TSA would require, because that's a federal agency. We don't hear about people having trouble, but if someone wants to examine the risks, they need to realize that they are going to be going through a federal agency's jurisdiction. Beyond that, it's Hawaii and, you know, staying out of trouble. I mean, which kind of goes, you know, stating the obvious.
And I'm sorry, I did jump in there, but yeah, we do all our ground travel at PCC. So that's kind of how we have our students remain secure. Yeah, so it's all.
Yeah, I mean, if someone were to come and ask specific legal advice on flying, we would probably suggest that they don't fly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone, thank you, everyone who asked questions. Thank you all for being here once again. If you do have specific questions, you can email David at the email that's posted on the screen, dlawler@garesen-la.org. And for those questions that were not answered, David will be answering them, sending them to me, and then I'll be emailing it to our Quest members. So please stay tuned for that. And also our recorded video, which will be up on YouTube within the next few days. Thank you so much, everyone, once again for being here. As everyone mentioned here today, the fight is not over, and we must continue advocating for our undocumented communities, our LGBTQ communities, and beyond. Our Butterfly Healing Series, as I mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, is on Fridays, 11 to noon. So you can email quest@pasadena.edu for the Zoom link. You can also become a Quest member so that you're always in the loop about everything that's going on. And as far as if you want one-on-one, you can meet with a psychologist with personal counseling. And I'll be sending that information in the email today.